Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of how so many unqualified people have entered the ranks of, all over the place, academia, government, business, all over the place. Unqualified, uncredentialed people seem to be in the majority now everywhere you go. The upper echelons of decision making and so on, that they're now, unqualified people are everywhere. So what was it like before? Now, I don't want to give the impression that because I'm old enough now to have seen this downhill slide sort of begin and pick up pace. So now the unqualified people are just everywhere, and it's cringeworthy, embarrassing, the level of the amount and the number of unqualified and how unqualified they are. And you're sitting in front of people talking to them, and you're thinking, holy crap, how could this person even manage to get out of bed in the morning, let alone have a job like this or have a senior role? And the effect on business, or it could be delivering medical services, it can be in government service, it can be anything. But this decline is vast. And so what was it like before? Well, the idea that it was somehow went from absolute perfection to no perfection or imperfection, that's not how it was. The situation was never perfect. But for the most part, merit prevented, and I'll use the term low quality generically, low quality people from getting into decision-making positions. Now, it didn't make it impossible, and sometimes still some would get through, and there'd be accidents of timing and place, and there was always the chairman of the board's wastrel nephew that would be given a cozy job. Those sort of things still happen. But the amount of rich people who could shoehorn their kids into cozy jobs, they were very few. Therefore, it's very rare that you'd come across them. And I did come across them. One of my bosses once had married into a family that he married the daughter of a family that had a primary or a large shareholding in this company, and so the son was given, or the son-in-law was given a cozy job in the company, and the guy was fucking useless, really. But anyway, but again, those things were very rare, but they still happened, and you still had boards of directors with a lot of people that were there just because they had the social connections and so on. Again, those sort of things happen, but they were wise enough to know that they didn't know anything. They were only there to swan around as in some prestige vanity project of a job, and they didn't tend to bother or interfere with the management, day-to-day management of the firm. Anyway, all that's changed today, but the difference was merit. When you have university, only the brightest kids used to go to university. The kids that started high school, barely 3% went to university when I was, at college age, and a third of those would drop out. They couldn't hack the pace. And if you flunked a test, which was a strictly merit pass or fail test, if you flunked it, you had to front up to the university administration and show cause. CAUSE, show cause for your that you flunked the exam, because you're a bright kid, you're taking up a spot at university, you're supposed to pass, and you're supposed to do whatever is necessary to pass this strictly merit pass or fail exam. And if you don't pass it, and you better have a good excuse. Your mother died, or you had to have some sort of excuse. And if you didn't, you'd be invited to leave. Hey, you can't hack it, buddy. You're not up to it. Either that, or you're too lazy, you won't put the work in, or you're too busy partying or whatever. So about 2% made it through, and of those, a tiny proportion had PhDs. So someone had a master's or a particularly PhD was treated with the reverence of a god, for goodness sakes, back in the day. When somebody came in, and this is PhD doctor, Dr. Billy Bob or something, and he was a doctor of PhD in metallurgy or that sort of thing, then you knew you were dealing with someone who's very clever. Now, they may not have been clever outside of their particular sphere of capability, metallurgy or whatever it was, and the classic idea of the PhD in pure mathematics who can't who looks like a real nerdy geek and can't, he's got two different coloured socks on. Those people abound. You still see that. There's hardly any PhDs, but nonetheless you knew that person was very accomplished and very capable, maybe only within their field, but nonetheless they'd met an independent standard of merit that was very high, and therefore you could accordingly, and they were back in that time, respected and even revered. Now the same would go in business. If people had been, you knew, and this was the same whether it was your boss at work who you reported to, or when you sat down for an interview at a job. But when you've done a number of interviews, as I've done over the years, sitting down in front of someone who you don't know, who you've never met, who doesn't know anyone that you know, the only way you can get hired is on merit. Yes, I can do the job, and yes, I'm qualified to do it, or credentialed to do it, but you knew you were talking to someone who also had done that job, or at the very, very least had supervised people who were expert in that job, and therefore knew enough about it to ask questions. So the sort of questions as a kid that, when I say kid, young man or younger man, that I would get were about, okay, this is the job, what it involves. Let's go through, can you do this, and do you know how to do that, and all that sort of stuff. So it's very much focused on, we need someone who can do the job, not someone who's just got a certification that says maybe they might, on a good day know something about it, but can you do it? Can you physically, to simplify it a bit, can you physically hold the broom and sweep the floor? Let's talk about that. These are the problems we've got. This is how can you help us solve them? Those types of, so it's very much focused on your credentials, your capability, your accomplishments, that sort of thing. Move fast forward to the sort of, I've been on interview panels where nobody is capable of doing an interview, and certainly in my view. And so they'll start off talking about, were you a member of the lesbian debating club at university? They'll go down that sort of thing in order to determine, are you woke enough? Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? The absolute cliche type questions that sort of have nothing to do with anything. Another favourite is to use some sort of acronym and to say, do you know what PWIP is? And then there's a sort of a look on the face of, so if you know an acronym, then what an acronym means, somehow that means you know what you're doing. So they'll rattle off a bunch of acronyms, which is the buzz type talk. So if somebody, I know what that means. It means there's lots of Nazis down the road there, and you know that, you must be, you're a switched on, and so on. And so the total interviewing structure has changed. Now, I've also sat in interview panels or done interviews directly interviewing graduate civil engineers, and there's a huge difference between a politically correct, woke, affirmative action civil engineer, so women or particularly women, and a non-affirmative action civil engineer. If you talk to the straight white guy and you ask civil engineering questions, he knows the answer. He's proficient, and he studied hard. He knows. But if you ask the female affirmative action candidate, she hasn't got a clue. Can't even begin to answer the question, and then gets irritated and annoyed. So, well, you're only asking those difficult questions because I'm a woman. No. It's because you're a civil engineer. You need to know this sort of stuff. Then their next retort is, well, why would I care? Why do I need to know? I can just log onto the internet at any time and get that information there. So who cares if I know it or not? So there's very, very different views as to education and its purpose, and knowledge and its purpose, and application of knowledge. Now, in order to achieve social equity or the ideological perception of social equity, standards have had to fall. So instead of 2 or 3% going to university as it was when I was a kid, it's now, in Australia at least, it's now getting close to 60% are going to university. In order to, I mean, have people become that much cleverer in time? Of course not. So they've had to lower the standards to the floor. What used to be, if you didn't get 65% in the final graduation exam as a minimum, that was like your entry level minimum. If you didn't get that, you weren't getting anywhere near the university. Now, if you wanted to do things like medicine or law back in the day, it would be 80, 85%, high 80s, 90% to get into those sorts of fields of study. So now today, and bear in mind affirmative action as well, so people aren't being marked or graded without affirmative action and DEI sort of lurking in the background. So to get into like teachers' college, things like that, now you only need 25%, and so many courses you don't even need that. And if you're a black lesbian, 15% will get you into university. So it shows you how much the standards have declined. So this idea that if you hold a university degree, you've shown that not only, even if your field of study, I mean, the way I viewed university degrees when I first started hiring people was that even if the degree wasn't directly in their field of study, so maybe they had a degree in English literature, for example, but they were applying for a job in information technology, for example. Then my view was that if they had a degree, then it was meritoriously acquired, which back then, although that was falling away at the time, it was meritoriously acquired. So I could be satisfied that this was a hardworking, diligent person who was capable of learning and understood the framework of acquiring complex information and translating that into some sort of effective action. So that was my sort of view on a degree. So a degree in itself at the time was a meritorious indication that person was hardworking, diligent, and had an above average intelligence. So that meant they were trainable and teachable. It meant they were capable of understanding complex instructions, which in itself was set them apart from the rest of the population. That's no longer the case. So all the devices that we used to have in place, and took for granted in that regard, by the way, the devices that we used to have, the meritorious degree, the meritorious master's or the meritorious PhD, but on top of that, the accomplishments. You wouldn't get promoted, typically, again, it wasn't perfect, you wouldn't get promoted to, and I'll use very simple sort of things here, you wouldn't get promoted from floor sweeper to executive floor sweeper unless you were good at sweeping the floor. You had to and you would have to satisfy more than one person. Your direct boss would have to be satisfied. But if they promoted you, then that guy's boss would say, why did you promote Billy Bob? He can't sweep the floor to save his life. So nobody wanted to have that conversation. So you would promote people based on merit, knowing that any independent observer, any impartial observer would say, well, Billy Bob's doing a good job of sweeping the floor. Now, it could be in any job, a good job of, I don't know, being a sales representative. It could be anything, but nonetheless, that's changed. People are being promoted and moved into managerial positions as part of a wider, the vanity project that equal outcomes really is, and it is a massive ideological vanity project. So that we've created a social equality in our society. People that can't sweep the floor to save their lives and are being given jobs and promoted. So this natural organic filtering mechanism accomplishment, achievement. What have you done? Have you built a business, or what have you accomplished and achieved and produced and created? And people would get promoted on that basis. So you knew that the general manager had that accomplishment, and had to achieve and had to produce a identifiable result in every little department or area of the company that he worked in. You knew that the accountant could count to 10. You knew that the factory, the lathe operator could operate that lathe, and you knew that people were competent in their jobs. Now, again, there were exceptions, and it wasn't like maybe somebody was competent, but they got drunk on the power of the job. Their power of others. There were things like that did occur, and it was. It wasn't perfect, but for the most part, you could. I remember sitting down in front of every person that ever interviewed me for a job, knowing that they were better qualified than me, that they had accomplished and achieved and produced and created within that organisation, and that's why they were sitting at that side of the table as the manager of the division or whatever their role was. And I knew that I could go to them and say, well, I don't know how to do this, or I'm struggling with this. It's in the same way you go to the mathematics teacher at high school and say, look, I can't work out this bit of calculus. Can you show me? You could do that, but you can't do it today. And as in the business that I overshare, and as we sit down so often now with the customer or the client or the head contract, whatever, 99 times out of 100, we're dealing with people that don't know what they're doing and shouldn't be in that job. They've been promoted for some sort of affirmative action reason, some sort of diversity, equity, inclusion, and I know that the degree that they have is every degree or every diploma or everything is now just a degree diploma factory. It's not an indication they've accomplished anything. They could have got into university on 15% grade for the graduation exam. They could have been given a degree just for turning up. They could have been given a master's just because they're a black lesbian. They could be given a PhD because they're black and trans, and so on. So these what once were serious, reliable indicators as to what level in the business world or society generally, perhaps, but the business world, what level you could attain. Now, if you wanted to do something about it, you could go to school and get a. There were people I knew who'd, Germans, this primarily was when I used to do a lot of business in Germany and visit there frequently. They would get jobs. There were people who were like mechanics or electricians or whatever, and they would go back to university, often sponsored, and mechanics would become mechanical engineers or electrical engineers and so on. So people were improving their position or going back as a mature age student, as they call it, going back to university or go to university. Maybe they didn't have a degree, but if you had 7 years experience and your employer would sponsor you in the sense of saying, well, Billy Bob has accomplished and achieved these things in this area. He's worked in the finance department for 7 years and done very well. Then you could go to university as a mature age student to come back with a master's of finance, for example. Now, nobody was prevented from improving their situation, but if they wanted to, but they had to do it through an independent, meritorious process. Now that's all broken down. It's completely broken down. It's lost, totally lost. So none of these indicators exist anymore. None of these filtering devices exist anymore. Now certification is the only issue, and often insurance companies. And I'll do another video on this part actually. Insurance companies are just insisting that you must have somebody who's certified, who's got a certificate in there. But the certificates are handed out again as a certificate factory. So there isn't any way anymore of determining the reliability or value of an employee in any given sphere. Now, there's sort of another aspect to this as well. If you have to work hard for something, if you have to bust your ass for a degree, or bust your ass to accomplish something in the organisation, and you've had to work hard, you've had to master the subject and understand it in detail so you can be an above average achiever in that field of endeavour, then that's a lot of work, a lot of commitment, a lot of focus, a lot of belief in that if you work hard and do a good job, that you can produce something worthwhile, and thus you will be in some way rewarded for that, either promotion or a bonus or whatever the case may be. That's also gone. If you're handed if you're given, if you've got an IQ of 80 and you're still given your junior high school diploma, and then you just gifted your senior high school diploma, then gifted graduation to university, then gifted a degree. Everything's been handed to you. Everything's been a gift that you have not earned. And the view of life generally that you have, like as in risk reward, hard work for reward, those types of things, those types of calculations that everybody makes, or sure needs to make, that's also been shot to pieces, because now there is no measuring of this is the hard work I did, this is the reward I got. So that calculus has just been shot to pieces. And so we're not only seeing underqualified or non-qualified people, affirmative action degree holders and diversity appointment. We're not only seeing all that, but we're seeing people who have no concept, not even a remote concept of hard work for reward, risk reward and so on. That's something they don't even comprehend. And so there's now more than one generation, really. It's two generations out there where, again, holding managerial positions in academia, all this sort of, that don't see a relationship between hard work, accomplishment, self-sacrifice, and all these things, and reward. They only see entitlement, and they only see this idea that that if they're at work, and they know they're not qualified, deep down, if they're at work doing nothing, wasting time, going around in circles and so on, that if somebody does appear who is capable and can do the work and is focused on achievement and this sort of thing, that, hey, that person's making me feel bad about myself. They're just reminding me of how stupid and useless I am. So the problem is them, not me. And this is now, again, industry-wide. And this is made worse by the sort of people that are being imported into the first world, again, under globalist direction, into the first world. These are also people who have no concept of hard work, reward, risk. That's a calculus they can't comprehend. And they too are coming in vast numbers. And there are entire public service departments and vast tracts of multinational firms where they have Indians and Africans and so on there, and very few of them, have any concept of this. So all the natural filtering mechanisms you must accomplish, you must achieve, otherwise you won't get a promotion. You must meritoriously strictly pass or fail degree or PhD, whatever, or you won't get these sort of jobs or have access to these sort of, that's all gone now. And everyone's got running around with an affirmative action diploma or degree, affirmative action promotions, affirmative action bonuses, and nothing is based on merit anymore. You've been fantastic today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.